Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Gimmick Puppet deck profile. So I'm really excited to see you guys because this deck is hands down one of the creepiest decks in the entire game. They can summon out some amazing rank 8 monsters to your side of the field and then rank them up into Chaos XZ monsters, which is an amazing thing for this deck to do. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name scripted in a single video, getting a signed card to the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll. This card is a great 3-of for the deck. It has the ability to, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish another Gimmick Puppet monster from the grave to special summon this card from the graveyard. It also has the ability that this card cannot be used as an XZ material for an XZ monster except for a Gimmick Puppet monster, which is totally fine because the majority of the time that's all we're going to be summoning anyways. We then play 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Bisque Doll. This card is a really awesome card as well because you can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 Gimmick Puppet monster, and you can banish this card from your graveyard, and your opponent cannot target Gimmick Puppet monsters that you control with card effects, which is a really good effect. We then play 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Magnet Doll. Magnet Doll is really good, but it does require your opponent to have a monster. If your opponent controls a monster and all monsters you control are Gimmick Puppet monsters, minimum 1, then you can special summon this card from your hand, which is a good effect to be able to just get an additional monster on your side of the field so you can start going for your rank 8 plays, which is really nice for this deck. We then play 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Humpty Dumpty. This card is a good 3-of as well because this card has the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, then you can special summon a Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand except another copy of itself. We then play 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Terror Baby. This card is hands down one of the creepiest cards I've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's actually really good for the deck. It has the ability, if this card is normal summon, you can target 1 Gimmick Puppet monster in the grave and special summon it in defense position, and you can manage this card from your graveyard, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Gimmick Puppet monster's effects this turn, essentially turning your Gimmick Puppets into speed spell 4s, which is absolutely nuts. We then play 3 copies of Gear Spring Spirit. This is not a Gimmick Puppet monster, but you can special summon it out to your side of the field if all you control is machine cards in your graveyard, which is a really good effect to be able to have, but you do have to have at least 1 monster in the graveyard to special summon this card, and it's really awesome to be able to get over cards with this card's effect that once per turn, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and its attack becomes 0 until the end phase, which is really good for this deck to be able to just drop that opponent's monster down to 0, and then make a crazy powerful XZ monster that's going to be able to go in for game. We then play 2 copies of Mecha Phantom Beast Tetherwolf. Tetherwolf is good because it gives you a token so that you can link summon into your copy of Chimera Doll, because it does just require out your 2 machine monsters to be able to summon this card. So you're basically just using this to link summon into a really powerful link monster. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Rank Up Magic Urgent Chaos Force. This card is a good 1-of in the deck because it has the ability to target a rank 5 or higher XZ monster that you control and special summon from your X deck 1 number C or C XZ monster that's 1 rank higher than that monster that you control by using it as an XZ material, which it does count it as an XZ summon. And when a rank 5 or higher XZ monster is special summoned to your side of the field while this card's in the graveyard, except during the damage step, then you can add this card back from your graveyard to your hand, but you can only use that effect once per duel to add it back from the graveyard to the hand. But it's a really good effect because you can make multiple CXZ monsters, which is really good, or number C monsters. We then play a single copy of Rank Up Magic Quick Chaos. This card is really good because it lets you target a number XZ monster you control except a number C monster, and XZ summon from your extra deck 1 number C monster with the same number in its name as the targeted monster, but 1 rank higher. It's a quick play spell, so you can use it during your opponent's turn, which is why this card is absolutely at least a 1-of in this deck. We then play a single copy of Rank Up Magic Numeron Force. Numeron Force is a good 1-of as well. It lets you target a number XZ monster that you control and then rank it up by 1. But this card has a really insane effect that if there are any face-up cards on the field other than that card that was summoned by this card, negate the effects of those cards. So this card basically just cold waves the entire field, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Condolence Puppet. Condolence Puppet is a good 1-of in the deck because it's basically Foolish Burial. that lets you send Gimmick Puppet monsters with different names from your deck to the graveyard up to the number of monsters your opponent controls that were special summoned from the extra deck +1. And you can manage this card from your graveyard and then target one Machine XZ monster that you control, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while face up on the field. Which is a really good effect, but you can only use this card once per turn, which is why I just basically play it as a one-of. You don't need it all the time, but it is a really good one-of in the deck. We then play 2 copies of Junk Puppet. This is basically a monster reborn for your Gimmick Puppet monsters that lets you target a Gimmick Puppet in the graveyard and special summon it, but you can only activate it once per turn, but it's a really good 2-of in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Machine Dupe. Machine Dupe is insanely good in the deck that lets you target one machine monster you control with 500 or less attack, and then special summon 2 more copies of that card from the deck, which is a really awesome thing for this card to do, to give you multiple monsters on your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Trade-In. Trade-In is an insanely good card in this deck that's going to let you discard your level 8 monsters from your hand to the graveyard, which some of them you actually want in the graveyard, this card is just so good. Like Dreary Doll, getting that card in the graveyard is really nice because then you can special summon it back really easily while also getting to draw 2 cards. We then play 3 copies of Zexal Construction. Zexal Construction is why I'm playing 1 each of these rank up magic spells now. This card has the ability to reveal 1 card in your hand, and if you do, add 1 of the following cards from your deck to your hand, and then shuffle the revealed card back in the deck. You can add a rank up magic spell from your deck to your hand. The other cards don't really come up, the ZW, ZS, Zexal spell, or the rank down magic. You're never going to search those. Basically, this card, you reveal a card in your hand, search one of your rank up magics, and then put the revealed card back into the deck, which can be really good to put certain cards back in the deck for Machine Dupe, which is just really, really good. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing a few traps, and they're really, really good in this deck. And it's going to be 2 copies of Trap Trick, and then we're going to be playing one of the most broken cards in the entire archetype, and there's going to be 3 copies of Puppet Parade. Puppet Parade is insanely good because it has the ability that if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon Gimmick Puppet monsters with different names from your deck up to the difference. Then if your opponent's life points are at least 2,000 higher than yours, you can set a rank up magic normal spell directly from your deck, and for the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special monsters except for Gimmick Puppet monsters, and you can only use this card once per turn. Trap Trick basically counts as your 4 and 5 of this card because you want to get to this card as quickly as possible because it's absolutely nuts to be able to just swarm the field with all sorts of different Gimmick Puppets. This card is just so good in this deck, and you gotta play it as a 3-of. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll. This card is a great link monster for the deck that requires 2 machine monsters, and then during your main phase, if you control this link summoned card, then you can activate this effect that you can't special monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except Machine XZs, and then also take 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Then, if all monsters you control are Gimmick Puppet monsters, minimum 1, you can special summon a Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand, which is a pretty good effect, especially if you have Dreary Doll in your hand and you can't get it in the graveyard any other way. This card can basically just special summon it to your field to help you get additional monsters on the field, while also getting cards for Gear Spring Spirit and your copies of Magnet Doll. We then play 2 copies of number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings. This card is really, really good because it lets you once per turn detach a material from this card and then place a string counter on each face-up monster on the field except this card. And if you do, during your opponent's next end phase, you can destroy all monsters with string counters on it. If you do, inflict 500 points of damage for each monster destroyed. That effect is never going to come up to destroy them during the end phase because you're always going to rank up into C40 and use its ability because it has the ability, if this card is XZ summon, you destroy all monsters with string counters, and if you do, you draw a card and then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the highest monster's original attack among the destroyed monsters, which is just a really good effect. It also has the ability once per turn detach a material from this card and then place a string counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls, which is a pretty good effect. We then play 2 copies of number 15 Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder. This card is a good 2-of in the deck because it has the ability that up to twice per turn during the main phase 1, you can detach a material from this card and then choose a special summon monster your opponent controls and destroy it. And if it's an XZ monster, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack, which is really, really good. We then play its ranked up C version as well, which is really good in this deck to be able to rank it up into this card because it has the ability to once per turn detach a material from this card and then target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. And if it was a monster, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack, which is pretty good for this deck. We then play a single copy of number 88 because it's a win condition and it's just a really fun card to play. It has the ability to once per turn, if you have no cards in your spell and trap card zone, then you can detach a material from this card, and if you do, place a destiny counter on this card, but you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect, and when this card gets 3 destiny counters on it, you automatically win the duel. We then play its ranked up version, which is C88 Gimmick Puppet Disaster Leo, which is just such a cool card and so easy to summon this deck. It must be ranked up with a rank up magic spell targeting number 88 Gimmick Puppet of Leo, and cannot be special summoned by other ways, and this card cannot be targeted by card effects, and then once per turn you can detach a material from this card and inflict 1,000 points of damage to your opponent, and then during your end phase, if your opponent's life points are 2,000 or less, and this card has no more materials, you win the duel. This card is very easy to summon, and I actually have won quite a few times with this card in play testing. We then play a single copy of the Gimmick Puppet rank 4 Gigantus Doll. This card is a really good card in the deck as well as a rank 4 to be able to use its ability to detach 2 materials from it and then target 2 monsters your opponent controls, gain control of them until the end phase, and also for the rest of the turn, you can't special monsters to type Gimmick Puppet monsters nor declare attack with any XZ monster that you control except XZ monsters, and you contribute this card and all monsters that you control become level 8 until the end of the turn, basically turning your opponent's monsters that you took with this card into level 8, so you can then make your Gimmick Puppet of Strings or your Giant Grinder or even number 88. We then play a single copy of Dingirsu. Dingirsu is a good rank 8 in this deck that's also Machine that can send cards from the field to the grave when it's XZ summon, which is pretty good. One copy of Raiders Knight. Since we are playing dark monsters, this is one of the only machine or non-machine monsters in the deck. You basically detach a material from this card and then summon Arc Rebellion, and then Arc Rebellion can basically just go in for games single-handedly, which is really, really good for this deck, and it cold waves the field and it gains attack equal to the amount of all monsters' attacks on the field, which is just really, really good, but you can only attack with this card for the rest of the turn. But since you put so many high attack point monsters on the field, you can make this and then swing one time and win the game, as long as you don't lock yourself into machine monsters. We then play a single copy of Double A Zeus. Double A Zeus is here to board wipe. It is a machine monster, so you can make it very easily by just attacking with any of your XZ monsters and then going main 2 and then summoning out your copy of Double A Zeus. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play. It's actually not that expensive to pick up Gimmick Puppets, and it's just a crazy fun deck to be able to play with because it's hands down one of the creepiest looking decks, but also one of the most fun to play with to make all sorts of different rank 8s to completely overwhelm the field. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.